Hello students, welcome again to my latest video lecture. I've been talking about, the very famous novel by R.K. Narayan, The Guide. This novel is prescribed in your syllabus, in the syllabus of the students of BA Final of RRBM University, Alwar. So let's discuss. I was talking about the central figure of this novel, and the central character is Raju. We see throughout the novel that Raju is like a toy in the hands of the gods, or you can say a plaything, like a puppet. He never does anything intentionally. Things happen. He enters from one role to another role gradually, without being aware of his future. We see that his father has a small shop in a town, and later on he opens a stall like thing, a stall at the platform in Malgudi. There different visitors come and inquire about the town, and he tells them that they can get a tonga or things like that from that place, and they can go to that place, and these particular places are interesting to visit. Gradually, he sees himself as a guide. He finds himself as a guide. He becomes a guide without being aware of his new role. And he shows different people, different places of that town. So we see Raju's career from railway guide to Mahatma. This is the whole span of his career. So this career brings out the truth of the statement that Raju never did anything. Things always happened to him. He never did anything intentionally. We feel like he is a passive actor. His entire career illustrates the drift of a passive character from one role to another role. He drifts without being aware of his, shifting. The novel depicts the process of self-exploration of a character. Raju becomes a tourist guide, not as a result of his choice planning, but almost, you can say, casually. He becomes a tourist guide casually. Raju's second role as a manager of a dancer, he gradually shifts or enters into another role as a manager of a dancer. Who is the dancer? Rosie is the dancer. This role also came upon him quite by accident. Raju drifted into jail. Here he did a thing deliberately, for a deliberate act of forgery. This was the one act that Raju did deliberately. Otherwise, in all the roles, he was drifted by the forces of fate or unintentionally. Once out of jail, he finds himself drifting into the role of a sadhu. When he finds that people want to believe in his spiritual power, he cannot disappoint them. He wants to escape them. He wants to run away them. But then he feels that the people are innocent and he should not leave them. He should not break their faith. Even in the final episode of fasting, the fasting is born passively to prove that things happen to Raju. He simply mentions something and people believe that he will fast unto death, and he has to fast until death. Always Raju is acted upon than acting. Though Raju is almost compared, or you can say the forces of compelled by the forces of circumstances to undergo the ordeal of fasting, the manner of his undergoing this ordeal is to the point of death, gives an impression that he has positively accepted the challenge, and not only accepted the challenge, but he has lived up to it. But some critics believe that Raju, the guide, finally becomes what he had posed to be. He posed to be a guide, and he becomes a spiritual guide at the end of the novel. Toward the end, Raju loses the feeling of an actor performing an act, and the act becomes the reality. The mask becomes the man, and Raju, the guide, he becomes a spiritual guide, a fraud turned honest. A fraud turned honest, whose impressions turn into a genuine act of self-sacrificial virtue. And this is the beauty. This is the beauty of the novel. This is the beauty of the character portrayal. This is the beauty of Raju's character. In the last part of the book, the metaphysical quality of the sentences spoken by Raju suggest a freedom for Raju from his self-deception. Now he doesn't deceive himself. He becomes a real person at the end of the novel. All his life he has submitted his personality and projected different images of his personality, befitting the requirements of various situations. The joys, the sorrows of his life have been of these projected images rather than his own. His real self comes out in the last scene of the novel. He realizes this only in the last moment. He strives to liberate his submerged self, and he comes to possess his long lost identity in the last scene, at the time of his death. Discovery of self is the theme of the novel. Rosie, the counterpart of the hero, who is the heroine of this novel, Rosie realizes that acquiring name and acquiring wealth as an artist is not an end in itself. The self has not only aspirations, the self has duties also. Raju himself discovers the self, but passing through the illusion. Which illusion? That he is serving in the first instance the family, and in the last instance a society. He feels this thing at the end of the play. Now, let's talk about Rosie also. Rosie is the heroine, you can say, is a novel. Rosie marries Marco for special reasons. She doesn't love him, but only because she has been attracted by the excitement of a new kind of life. She was born in a family of dancers, and she used to dance. Her mother also used to dance, and when she comes to know about Marco in a matrimonial in a newspaper, she thinks about a new kind of life. Marco is a wealthy person, an intellectual person, so she dreams of a life of being a wife of a wealthy intellectual. When she reads a matrimonial advertisement of Marco in a newspaper, she starts thinking about her new life. But she remains essentially an artist, and this quality Raju exploits this quality to his own personal advantages. That she is an artist basically, and she lives with Marco only for money. Rosie has decided to make amends for her sin of adultery by sacrificing her art. Rosie lives with Raju for a few days, then she feels that she has committed a mistake, and she then goes back to her husband. She sacrifices her art. She finally retires to Madras. Why? In order to dedicate herself to the practice of her art of Bharatanatyam. Raju's imprisonment and Rosie's redemption, both are simultaneous. But in the end, Raju becomes a fugitive from the civilized world. How? When he is released from the prison, he happens to visit a ruined temple at the bank of a river, of the river Saryu, and he takes rest there. And suddenly a gullible villager comes to him and says that he takes him to be a saint. So he says, he tells Raju that he is in a trouble. He wants his niece to be married to the person of his choice, and his niece is not ready to marry that person. Raju says, okay, I bring her to me. I will persuade her to bring her to our point of view, or to your point of view rather. He does so, and Raju successfully persuades her to marry the person of Valen's choice. When Valen sees this, he is surprised. He is extremely very happy to see the power of that saint, and he tells the other villagers also that this is a real saint. Raju is a saint, and villagers also believe him to be a saint, and they come to him seeking his blessings, and they bring their personal problems, and Raju tries to solve those problems. And gradually Raju starts teaching the villagers in the temple premises, and this goes on. And Raju constantly thinks about his past also. He doesn't forget his past. He doesn't forget his family life, how he lived with his parents, how he worked at a stall at the railway station, then how he became a guide, and then the Marco Rosie episode, how Rosie came into his life, how he became a manager, how he exploited Rosie's art, how he forged the signs of Marco, how he landed into the jail, and how he was released. These things, come into his mind constantly while he acts as a saint. Then there is no rain, and villagers come to him and ask him to observe fast, and he observes it. He is compelled to observe it, in fact, and then there is rain perhaps and it dies. This happens. So this is really an interesting novel. Read it and enjoy it if you want to really relish the idea of reading the novel. And thank you very much for watching it with interest, with pleasure, and I will come again with yet another video on some other aspect of this novel. Thank you very much for watching me. Wait for another video on some other aspect of the same novel. Thank you very much.